Alright, before we get into the video, I just want to say my bad for the space between videos after the Silver Eyes. After editing that for like 4 or 5 days straight, I was a little tired. But I gotta try not to do that and just keep it going, you know what I'm saying? This video would have been done sooner also, but I got a little distracted on Monday, so here's some pictures of that. I'd actually never seen a total solar eclipse before, so it was pretty cool actually. I was genuinely surprised how dark it got. Plus, a total solar eclipse hasn't been visible in my state since 1869 or 1205. I found sources that say both, so I don't know which one is true, but either way it's still pretty cool. But now, onto the actual video. As we all know, back in 2023, Security Breach's Ruin DLC introduced us to the silly little guy in the basement known as the Mimic. Or, if you read the Tales books, you actually would have met him back in 2022, but, you know, it's still kind of up in the air whether Tales is in the same continuity as the games, but that's not what I'm here to talk about, okay? There was a growing sentiment on Twitter last month about how Steelwool and Scott are sort of fumbling, quote-unquote, the Mimic and his sort of introduction to the story. Things like they don't really like his character, and that he only raises more questions than answers. There's also a third thing, but I'll get to that later. Now, to get one thing clear, it's fine to simply not like the idea of the Mimic. Like, it's okay, don't get me wrong. But in my opinion, to say that he has no character or very little character is really weird to me, because, like, yeah, he was literally just introduced to the games in a sort of cliffhanger ending. People almost acted like Ruin was gonna be the last FNAF game, or the last we'd ever see of Mimic and Cassie after that. Despite Ruin ending in a way that clearly sets up more to happen with Cassie stuck down there. But this kind of doesn't surprise me because something similar happened back when Security Breach came out. Now, I'm not here to defend Security Breach's storytelling, but one thing I never understood is how mad people got when they didn't get every answer to every question set up in the game. Like I said earlier, people would make it seem like we would never get answers to these things. And you might say that we still don't have answers for some of those questions. However, the story is also not over. If you have a trilogy of movies, for example, you may get a mystery set up in movie 1 and not see the answer till movie 3. That doesn't make movie 1 or movie 2 worse for not answering a specific question you wanted answered. It just means that there's a grander story going on, and that movie 1 was simply chapter 1. Security Breach would be chapter 1, and you do not get every answer for every question that chapter 1 sets up in chapter 1. One thing we still don't have an answer for is like the mic room, for example, which is, yeah, that is weird. I still think about that to this day. And I understand that a lot of this frustration and energy comes from people really wanting to know the answer now and trying to theorize an answer, but I think sometimes you kind of just have to accept that we don't have enough information and we just have to wait for the next installment. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm patient, but I don't know, I'm just gonna wait, you know, Like, for FNAF 1, we didn't know anything. We knew a man lured 5 kids to the back rooms of Freddy's, and it's implied that they were stuffed in the suits, but we didn't know who did it or why. We just knew enough to make a core story. There were other mysteries too, like, what was Golden Freddy? Why did he act so different than the others? Was Phone Guy, and what happened to his body? The latter of that never actually being answered, but it doesn't really need to be. If it is, that's cool, but it doesn't need to be. It's one of those questions that several people would like an answer, but we don't need it. The Mimic was just introduced, so I cannot in good faith label him a good or bad villain, or even character for that matter. Same way I couldn't say Vanny was a good or bad villain when she was being set up in Curse of Dreadbear and FNAF AR. That would just be literally premature. We knew nothing about her yet. They did end up fumbling Vanny, though, to be fair. As much as I do enjoy Security Breach, I will never let that go. It is such a shame, bro. And to the point of him raising more questions and giving answers, I only partially agree with that. I think it's very clear at this point that Steelwool is building up something called Fall Fest. It's been lurking in the background ever since Curse of Dreadbear. And I'm not saying that the Mimic is going to be directly tied to Fall Fest, but my point is that we clearly have so much more story coming that we can't say we're not going to get answers. I know people want answers now instead of waiting, but like, calm down a little, alright guys? It's kind of why I don't go too far into theorizing personally, simply because at a certain point, it's just assumptions and headcanons, which is still fun, don't get me wrong, but people take theories way too serious for something that has a chance to just not at all be correct. Now, to the point that I mentioned we talk about later, do you now have to read the books? Just upfront and honest, I don't think so. As always, I do not think the books are required to play the games and understand their story. All they've ever really done is help explore and reinforce certain ideas, such as Remnant, or give possible backstory to flesh out some stuff. For example, everything we learn about Henry's relationship with William in the Silver Eyes continuity is probably true in the games, since there isn't anything that says it isn't the case. I don't think Sammy exists in the games, but Henry and William's dynamic is probably the same. But I don't see that as something you actually need to know to understand what is going on in FNAF 6. It's just a nice added bit to the characters for those who wanted more. It's also a different continuity, so you just have fun with that as well. Now, in the case of the Mimic, the reason people say you have to read the books is because a lot of the questions about the Mimic that were raised are kind of answered in Tales, which leads people to say that you have to read them to understand the Mimic. Now, I think if the Mimic's full backstory is relevant to the story, truly, I think Steelwool will probably in the future give bits and pieces for the game-only fans. Stuff like environmental storytelling or audio logs. And I only say this because there's never been a precedent for you to have to read the books, okay? Now, I'm not saying that this isn't a possibility, maybe, all right, maybe this time. However, there's still the debate of whether or not Tales is in the game's continuity, as there are many little discrepancies, such as Tales saying the Pizzaplex opened in 2017, which if you think about that for even a second, that simply is not possible in the games. FNAF 3 hadn't even happened yet. That was 2023, which means FNAF 6 can't have happened yet, and as we know, the Pizzaplex is built on top of the FNAF 6 pizzeria. There are also smaller discrepancies with the Mimic as well, with his design. That could be waved away by saying he swapped out some parts, something we know he does. As of right now, I think Tales serves as some characterization for the Mimic. Much like I think the books do for Henry and William, as I keep saying, those three characters are not one-to-one between their continuities, but I think they're just nice bonuses to flesh out their characters and stories. Now, if Tales isn't in the game's continuity, did Edwin still build him? I don't know. As I literally said, he was just introduced. Maybe they reveal Edwin in the games. Maybe we see Tiger Rock in the AR world. Maybe they reveal Henry built him. Bottom line is none of us know, and as much fun as it is theorizing, it needs to be accepted that we will never have all the pieces at once until the story is concluded. I'm not telling you to not theorize, and I'm not telling you to not have fun. I'm just more so saying stop taking it so serious, okay? The story is still going. Things are still, you know, motion in the ocean, bruv, right? We just gotta wait, man. We just gotta wait. I think most people understand this, but I think equally a lot don't and need theories to line up perfectly, and if they don't, they think that the story is bad somehow, even though we basically don't know at all what the story with the Mimic will even be. At the end of the day, only time will tell, and maybe they do fumble the Mimic, but I think it's far too early to say. Me personally, I like the funny little guy, and I'm really excited to see where they take him in the future. This video is more of kind of like a rant, even though I did write a script. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below about the Mimic. I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Even if you do think the Mimic was fumbled, just let me know in the comments. I enjoy reading your guys' comments, whether you agree with me or not, and just seeing different perspectives. I think that's pretty important, you know, when trying to have a discussion. So let me know in the comments what you guys think about the Mimic. And also, yes, I will be doing the Twisted Ones. You guys fucking obliterated the like goal. The like goal for the Silver Eyes was 25 likes, and it right now, as recording this, has 289. So, safe to say I'm going to be reading the Twisted Ones very, very soon. Subscribe and turn the notification bell on if you want to see that Twisted Ones retrospective when it comes out. And if you haven't seen my Silver Eyes retrospective, it's going to be right here at the end screen right now.